Deathpixie disclaimer. This video was originally recorded in September 2024. There is swearing and profanity. Sources are listed in the description. This video is not monetized. Any ads you see provide revenue to the hosting site, not the creators. If you made it this far, geez, you have a lot of patience.
Dance Pixie, dancing on the lip of madness!
Welcome to Shitty PowerPoint Theater. Dignity not included.
Now,
Sure would be nice to have.
Now I have
Justin.
We have Justin Trudeau to get through, and then I have the part that I have been waiting so long to show you.
We need it.
So we're gonna try and get through Justin Trudeau. Recognize he is the current prime minister, so
Yeah.
we don't really have stats yet on how stuff is gonna play out and finish.
Our analysis so far is incomplete.
Yeah, but we still got to do it. Justin Trudeau, if anything, he was the COVID leader for the thirsty masses, because the way
Look at his beard.
I'm sorry. Like,
it is gorgeous.
You are lying. I don't care what your political affiliation is. You are lying if you say you wouldn't tap COVID Trudeau.
I can also say I'm straight, but looking at that man gives me second views. Jeez.
You'd tap that. You would tap.
Yeah, you
COVID
have
Trudeau.
to tap that ass. Yeah.
Anyway, keeping on with theme, there's my animation.
Yeah, that's okay. That one's great.
Yeah. So, COVID leader for the thirsty masses. When we get into the parade of memes, you will understand why. My fellow Canadians, I love that in COVID times we were able to come together and get behind COVID Trudeau. But we will get to that with the
Stupid, sexy Justin.
I know. Liberal, obviously, he has been the leader from 2015 to the present. He was born in 71 and he's still alive. Sophie Gregor, it was his wife. They are separated as of 2023, and they have three children.
Yep, he's actually the first prime minister, as far as I know, to be separated and going through divorce proceedings while in office.
Yes. So there you go. Which means we now have single Justin Trudeau, which you will appreciate in the parade of memes later. I gotta pause. Justin Trudeau is the first prime minister who had the full-fledged work of the social media for memes. I had to make a parade of memes about this because it is just beautiful. It is mwah. This, I also want to note, this is when he is the prime minister where the salaries of prime ministers start being listed prominently. So when he was promising transparent government, that was part of it. So are there places where he was lacking? Yes, but he has certainly been more transparent than a lot of other prime ministers have been. So I will give him that. Now then, pro cons. Contrary to popular belief, Justin Trudeau actually isn't the devil. Just want to put that out there. So pros, so he had actually reduced Canada's debt to GDP ratio every year until COVID-19 hit. So he was heading towards a balance had COVID-19 not happen. And like we said, we are forgiving when there is a legitimate reason, and a global pandemic where your people are dying is a legitimate reason. The Cannabis Act passed under him. Progressive social policy, which included advocacy for feminism and abortion rights. Karen Jensen is the first ever Canada's pay equity commissioner. Pay equity is a big thing because
it's huge.
It is a very huge thing. It also combines, we also get intersectionality with it, where we start to see, women who are POC who feel that they're stuck in an administrative role that is essential to their office, but they are not compensated. are essential. So there's a lot of intersectionality to happen here, which is why it's important.
Keep in mind, before we go any further, to any of you pundits who may go against the Cannabis Act, why not make it legal and tax the hell out of it?
Yeah.
Why not make it safe for those who want to use it and make it legal and tax the hell out of it when it's got health benefits associated with it? I really don't that is the one personal hill I will die on. I do not use medicinal marijuana or marijuana of any kind. However,
I don't either.
For those who do, why not make it safe? Why not make it legal? Why not tax the hell out of it?
Exactly. He launched a national child club program. He had a confidence and supply agreement with the NDP. Also, right to medically assisted dying. Everybody views this as so controversial, but I'm just like, people deserve to have a certain amount of dignity in their
the reason why people view medically assisted dying as controversial, and that's and you know, depending on where you grow up, that can still be controversial. You can have people list this in the cons list and it would totally make sense. However, you're viewing the right to die with dignity over the right of whether or not somebody is competent and truly in a sound and stable mind when they do that. The right to medically assisted dying is only in extremist cases.
Yes.
Like, you know, you've got 6 months to live anyway, and the pain you're going to go through in the 6 months isn't really worth it. Those are the kinds of cases where medically assisted dying is a-okay. There are a lot of checks and balances in with that specific legislation. That is why we put it in as a pro, regardless of your viewpoints on medically assisted death, medically assisted suicide, whatever it may be.
I also want to point out, doctors are allowed to refuse to give treatment. They have to give a recommendation. They have to give a referral. But you're not turning doctors into murderers. No, if they're not comfortable doing it, they would give a referral.
They don't have to do it.
Yeah, they do. They do not have to. So that's a common misconception I find.
Yep.
The assault weapons ban in response to the 2020 Nova Scotia attacks, which was quite that was quite horrific and very shaking. Negotiated trade deals. So the United States, Mexico, Canada agreement, comprehensive and progressive agreement for the Trans-Pacific Partnership. These are all deals that have to happen. Whether you like the specifics or not, they have to be there.
Say what you want, Donald Trump was a huge force in American politics at the time. You needed that deal to happen. If Justin is not there, that might have been a lot worse for Canada than it had become.
Yeah. Banning 6 common single-use plastics. We are in the transition period for that. I think I can't remember if it's supposed to be what year it's supposed to be full ban, but we're in a transition period right now.
I don't know, to be perfectly honest with you. Now, again, to give the devil their due, there are some disabilities out there in which single-use plastic straws could be the only thing that is available on the market immediately that they can drink out of, that they've got enough tactility to drink out of. That is a very real and common thing. Those common-use plastics do involve that kind of thing. If you are hardcore disability, hardcore anti-plastic, I can see that as a con. And when it comes to other certain types of plastics that are encompassed in this ban, absolutely it's an environmental measure. But there again, take some of these things as a grain of salt. We view it as an overall positive. We're not saying that there isn't negative connotations with it as well.
There's new commitments to reducing greenhouse gas emissions. So by 30%, zero net emissions by 2050. Signed the Paris Agreement. We will get to the Paris Agreement in the Paris Agreement. Because there was a moment. There was a moment, and we will talk about that in the parade of memes.
Oh yeah. Like, keep in mind, the Paris agreements aren't bad.
No,
like in terms of environmentalist policy, it is bare minimum. But yes, there is a moment.
There's a moment.
Like I've been locked in a dungeon, surviving off of fish heads. I know this moment.
Federal carbon tax, which is to achieve the greenhouse gas reduction commitments, strengthening environmental impact assessments. One thing that I think we all learned from COVID is when people who can work from home do work from home, we see a reduction in healthcare issues. We can actually have a reduction in overhead costs, and we see a massive reduction in environmental pollution. Even when people are going to do their social aspects of life, we still see that reduction. And I get that all governments are trying to balance their interests with the interests of corporations and stuff like that. But I will say that is an avenue for exploration. Just putting it out there.
Sure is.
There were 3 major independent investigations that happened. Here they are. So the National Inquiry into Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women, which found that Canada's response to the issue amounts to genocide. Trudeau has accepted that finding. The Joint Federal Provincial Commission into the 2020 Nova Scotia attacks, which was in partnership with the government of Nova Scotia. As you can see, the assault ban was a immediate response to that, because it's kind of viewed that, something like that happening, even if it's once is too much.
Absolutely.
And then public inquiry into foreign interference in federal electoral process and democratic institutions. Oh, you said he didn't respond to that? There's an investigation about it. Anyway, 2025 is when the sale of the items, and that was the plastics ban. It's supposed to be 2025. Yeah. Withdrawing Canadian air support from the Syrian civil war and welcoming 25,000 refugees. However you look at that, that was important to stop bombing them. It was important to it's always important to bring in refugees to safety, I think.
Yeah.
COVID-19. So his response, there are a lot of details on his response to COVID-19 and what he did. He actually increased several benefits. There were travel restrictions that happened, which were all based on scientific research. There were the Quarantine Act and things like that. The Canada Emergency Response Benefit became part of a package. Emergency wage subsidy, emergency business account, emergency Canada student benefit. Canadian forces were deployed in long-term care homes in Quebec and Ontario as part of Operation Laser, and they, in fact, to those provincial governments, delivered reports of their findings and what should be going on. I want to note that the situation in some of those long-term care homes were absolutely dire. The military was needed to be in there. It was dire. There was a lockdown benefit for Canadian workers. There were a lot of things. He also had to force certain accountability of certain provinces. There was an infamous phone call made to some provinces. We don't know specifically what was said, but suddenly those provinces started taking COVID-19 seriously after that.
Yeah. We don't want to give too much away, but we did live in one of those provinces where they got the phone call, and it's okay. So you ever know when you're in school and the teacher threatens to call the parent?
Yes.
And the reaction after, things happen.
That's
happened. Yeah.
1 second. Sorry, a plug fell. I had to replug something in. Anyway, we're back. But yes, that's exactly what happened. The principal called everyone to the office.
Yeah.
We also have overall his response to the Russian invasion of Ukraine and the Quebec City mosque attack response has been viewed positively. 2019, there was the final report of the National Inquiry into Murdered and Indigenous Women and Girls was released. It had started in 2015. So that also, there's also the formal apology to Inuit and Nunatukovik residential school survivors and their families, because remember, those communities were left out of the original apology.
Yep.
In 2022, he lifted a 131-day long-term drinking water, lifted 131 long-term drinking water advisories. So that means that there are only 34 long-term drinking water advisories left in 29 communities, which is great progress. 2021 acknowledged that Canada committed cultural genocide against Indigenous peoples and elevated Orange Shirt Day to a statutory holiday, and it is called the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. It should be noted that there is a website tracking, is it the 92 recommendations for Truth and Reconciliation document and the progress being made there. I want to acknowledge that a lot of the recommendations that would have a profound impact are incredibly complex to do. And we touched on this in our earlier episode, talking about the fact that the more different levels of government you involve, the more jurisdictions you involve, it becomes even more complex. So that's what it's a complex process that takes time. And at least it's happening. It's happening. Progress is slow. We want to acknowledge that it's slow. And we do understand the reasons behind why it's slow. Gender expression and gender identity were added to the Canadian Human Rights and Act. And a bill made conversion therapies illegal in Canada, which is quite big. And then he reinstated the mandatory long-form census, which, is great for knowing where funding should go. And he did attempt Senate appointment reform by establishing the Independent Advisory Board for Senate appointments. It's way too early to see what the results of that are going to be. I have a feeling we won't really see the results of that for a couple decades, to be perfectly frank. But it is good that it's there. I do want to talk about rebuilding relations with Indigenous people in Canada. So there is stuff you can look up online. Delivering on Truth and Reconciliation Commission calls to action. So those are all the calls to action. There's reports NCTR, which can help you track. And then there's Beyond 94 from CBC News, which again is more of the tracking of those recommendations. So it's 94 recommendations, I believe. So there we go. Now on to the con. I'm going to do the top one last because I know you have words.
Yeah.
So we're going to do that last. First off, the brownface scandal. He made very good apologies. He acknowledged what he did. He accepted responsibility. He apologized for it. To sum up, he said, I shouldn't have done that. I should have known better, and I didn't. I am really sorry. It was something that I didn't think was racist at the time, but now I recognize it was something racist to do. I'm going to acknowledge one thing. It was really bad. I want to acknowledge
really bad.
One thing about it is that up until the last decade, he did this before his involvement in politics. I will say, I'll give him that. He did it before his involvement in politics. Up until the last decade, it was viewed that I'm paying an homage to someone, so I should try to look exactly like them. And that's how some people viewed brownface, blackface, etc. That's not acceptable. You can homage somebody, you can dress up as somebody without changing your physical features. Now, I do recognize that, as a white person, I can absolutely make fun of white people who tan too much because it's tanning. It's not blackface, it's not brownface. It's tanner, it's bronzer, it's whatever you want to call it. But this was, I believe it was some sort of school talent. He was a teacher, a school talent show, and apparently everybody encouraged him to dress up as Aladdin, and part of that was brownface. Everybody should have known better. Everybody should have known better. I will say I am happy that he accepted his responsibility, he apologized, and didn't issue any excuses. So, but it's bad.
Yeah.
However, I will also note, shockingly, less racist than half the shit Harper said, if you can believe it. His brown face was less racist. That's a problem, people. That is a problem. Now then, major con in favor of oil and gas pipelines to bring Canadian fossil fuels and resources to foreign markets. There's a shit ton of controversy around this because of land claims and treaties not being fully resolved. That's the tertiary explanation I can give. There's so much context that I can't jump into. The Aga Khan affair and the SNC Lavalin affair. That being said, the fact that investigations happened while he was in office, conclusions were made, and he accepted the results are huge. Because typically, if you didn't notice, a lot of past prime ministers try to lengthen out how long that happens, and then nothing really happens on it until they are gone, and they shaft somebody with the responsibility of it. So the fact that he was doing this in office was a big change. Not to say that it was good, but it's the fact that it happened. The We Charity scandal is there as well. However, he was completely cleared of wrongdoing. So take that for what you will. But again, the same thing. It is quite a marked departure from what PMs across the political spectrum were doing when it came to scandal investigations, which was to draw it when it happens until you're out of office. So I'll give him that amount of credit. And yeah, shockingly, the brown face was less racist than what certain members of the Conservative Party say, which is shocking, I know, and shouldn't be true, but it is. The big con that the only explanation I can offer for it is you have to get your party behind you 100%, and if they are not, you're not going to be able to do it. That's the only explanation I can offer for this. He did not follow through on election reform. I know we spoke about Canada being first past the post and how it doesn't properly represent political opinion.
Yeah.
And the fact that, proportional representation is more common in our style of government when we look around at other countries in the world and things like that. So he actually got elected on a platform that promised electoral reform, and then it didn't happen.
He did. Now, for those of you who, again, may need a bit of a refresher, because it could be a long time, I don't know how many episodes this series is going to be.
I don't even know that.
Yeah, you don't even know that. And if you don't know that, how can I be expected to know that? But it basically boils down to this. Proportional representation. You would vote for your person in power. And it would be... then all the votes would be tallied up based almost entirely on popular vote. Whoever received the most percentage of votes would become prime minister. It would then be their responsibility to delegate out which ridings their cabinets or their ministers got into. Whatever the case may be, you would not vote for the individual, the political representative in your riding. That would all be appointed by the political leaders at the time. And it would go based around, who got the most votes, who got the second most votes, who got the third most votes, etc., etc. The reason why Miri offered up the defense that the only way you can look at it is you need your party on board is because an electoral reform almost always guarantees a minority government. It does. It's a fact of life because you would actually need over 50% of the votes. Period. As a candidate to attain a majority government. through FPTP, Justin Trudeau in the 2015 election, where he included voter reform, and it was one of the top things, got elected. Because he had a majority government, he chose not to enact it. If we truly want to fight voter apathy, if we truly want to avoid historically low voter turnouts, proportional representation would ensure that your votes are accounted for. It would no longer be the case of, let's say in my writing, you may not have enjoyed Jean Chrétien, you may not have enjoyed Paul Martin, but you did enjoy the work that your Liberal MP did. So you would vote based off of that, despite you may agree with the New Democratic Party or the Conservative Party or the Green Party, what have you. You would vote for the MP that did the best job in your riding. You would not vote for the Prime Minister who could enact policies that the MPs would have to follow through. For Justin Trudeau not to follow through on proportional representation signaled to me, and I would argue to many other Canadians, that Justin Trudeau was not interested in the change he promised. Justin Trudeau is interested in making base level image quality of life changes for Canada. A lot of the environmentalist reform, yes, all very good stuff. But if you truly wanted to usher Canada into a new future where things could not be stripped away to the level that we could see with Poilievre, you needed a proportional representation system in order to make that happen. Yeah. Justin Trudeau promised that. He got in on electoral reform. He got in based off of people wanting it. Immediately takes it away. That is my, and it's not Mary's opinion of Justin Trudeau. It is my opinion of Justin Trudeau. As great of the stuff that he did is, for him not to follow through on that promise really spoke volumes as to what he was truly interested in terms of Canada. And I, for all goods and services, I will say right now, I will never vote for Justin Trudeau. Ever. Based off of that policy.
Where we differ is, like I said, I'm a little bit more forgiving, but also yeah. I am fucking terrified of, like, especially after going through this period of research, I am terrified of the Conservative Party.
Yep.
They are not conservative in the historical sense of the
absolutely
party.
Not.
They are evangelical Christian conservative, and it is terrifying. It is terrifying to hear.
Do you want to know where the last truly conservative government was? In terms of the traditional meaning of conservatism?
Yes.
That would be the Jean Chrétien Liberal government. Because that one, believe it or not, was the last one interested in protectionist policies and not making a lot of widespread changes. Traditional conservatism is that our current way of life is working. We need to protect that.
Yeah.
And very little change needs to happen. You are in favor of a government which may or may not be big or small. That is very centralized in power. Like, it is a very efficient government. It is a very safe government, and it is a government where not a lot of big policy change has happened because they value, okay, the stuff that we did is very good. It needs to, like, it worked then, it can work now.
Yep. Yeah, and
It's not interested in rewriting or putting policies back to the Stone Age.
Yeah.
It's interested in staying the course. That's traditional conservatism.
Yeah. And like you're probably like, Mary, Crabsworth, you've been way too forgiving with this pro-cons list. And the reality is, no, we haven't. Despite what you hear about Justin Trudeau,
yeah,
this is what he's done on paper.
And
on paper, these are the pros and the cons.
Yeah. And to be fair, to be completely fair to Justin Trudeau, a lot of the pros and cons are based amongst recency bias. We don't know what'll happen 5-10 years down the line. If we chose to redo this, some of these policies may end up to be negative.
Yeah. And who knows?
But yeah, this analysis is a point-in-time analysis for Trudeau.
Yeah.
Unlike every other prime minister.
But I think we can all agree he's not this devil character that a certain party makes him out to be. I have I have some further context I want to add, and then I think somebody gets his mandated yearly break. So some further context. Fish heads.
Sorry.
He has an untold number of death threats and attempted home invasions at 24 Sussex.
Oh yeah.
It's genuinely ridiculous and quite frankly, it's scary. Because remember, his kids are there too. The most recent amendments made to the Indian Act have happened, and remember, we know it's an antiquated name, but nobody wants to redo it with a 10.
What exactly is the India Act, Mary?
Yeah, no, sorry, Indian Act. So basically, the amendments were aimed to address gender-based inequalities. So there were also numerous amendments made before that, such as Jobs and Growth Act being introduced. The Indian Act is the primary document for how the Canadian government interacts with 614 identified Indigenous communities across the country. That is why it's so difficult to overhaul and replace it, because it's the base document for so much. So it's a difficult one. A couple things that were a thing. So the Canada, United States, Mexico agreement, which was a NAFTA replacement, where a wonderful incident happened, which we will talk about.
Oh yeah.
He is the first person to invoke the Emergencies Act, which I thought was unfair wording when I was reading about it, because the Emergencies Act replaced the War Measures Act. So it was in response to the Freedom Convoy protests. There are many differing opinions about that. I will say the Ottawa police were not doing anything about it. They were doing absolutely nothing. They were given ample time to do something about it. And it was enacted because something needed to be done. It was causing a lot of issues for the people of Ottawa. So that's me summarizing it. Take it or leave it, but I will say something had to be done. The Trudeau government also announced that it would admit 500,000 immigrants per year by 2025. That's a take it or leave it thing. I think you have to recognize historically, Canada's population only increases through immigration. Period. That is how. And guess what? We are facing an aging population with not enough resources to take care of them in the future. That. End of story. Like there's a very practical reason behind it. You can take it or leave it. It's just understand that historically speaking, that is how Canada increases its population, is through immigration. And in addition, we're facing a bit of a crisis in the next decade or so, when our aging population comes to the point where they need a lot more care. And that's just a fact. Do you have anything you'd like to add before you get your yearly mandatory break?
Yearly, eh?
Yeah, your yearly break. You get to run around the yard on a leash.
Okay. Who's taking me out? Is it the producer? Is it Eli?
Oh, it's you and Eli.
Okay, perfect. So as we frolic.
As you frolic.
But no. Justin Trudeau is a very divisive person right now.
Yeah.
We could look back on him in several years and say that he is the best prime minister in modern history. We could also look back on him and say he is the worst thing to have happened to Canada ever.
I don't know. I think we went through other prime ministers who are going to get that title.
But we haven't gotten to the FU exit move yet that was predicated by his father. We don't know what that's going to be.
Oh man!
So we have to.
Please tell me it will be entertaining. I so want it to be entertaining. Dear Justin Trudeau, if you can do an FU exit move that is more entertaining than your father's, we will love you for that. Obviously, it'll probably be a con, but we don't care. We want entertainment, as evidenced by the Chrétien era.
Yeah. So here's the thing. We know that in terms of Canadian politics, Justin Trudeau is very divisive right now.
Yes.
It's hot button. You can't go anywhere without running into it in the political sense. Objectively, I have my views on him. Miri has much more positive views on him. We do have the parade of memes.
You
at the end of the day,
you may not like him, but you like the memes.
I do like the memes. And here's the thing.
It's grade A memes.
At the end of the day, with this entire list, and I'm saying this now because this is the final boring thing before we get to the fun stuff. Whether you agree with us or not, understand we are coming at this from our perspectives, our biases. You can have your own. Mm-hmm. And there are times when Miri and I got into quite a bit of verbal sparring over some of the pros cons. Sometimes Miri won, sometimes I won. Blood was lost, fish heads were withheld, hunger strikes were held, and then producer Rob had to, feed Miri because a hunger strike for a witch is not a good thing. Of course, she got the porterhouse tenderloin steaks. I got the fish heads. But at the end of the day, take a look at this. Miri has done a metric ton of research into this. That is why we can be informed going forward. All of this seriousness is at the end of the day meant to lead to hilarious fun that we are so looking forward to. Yeah. Because we've got certain things drafted up in the pipeline for this that we are both like, let's just get through this. We're going to get to the fun stuff. It's going to be a lot of fun. Thank you so much for coming with us through the necessary slog through Canadian history.
So we're going to take our mandatory break. And then the last bit on Justin Trudeau, just, some quotes and his CV will be added on the end. And then the episode after this one will be the parade of memes, which I know everybody's been waiting for. So everybody go take your mandatory break or keep listening and we'll come back in and you won't even notice that we had a mandatory break.
Da 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 da.
And we're back from the mandatory break. Woohoo!
Woohoo! Oh, man.
You probably haven't noticed anything, other than a shirt change.
Yeah, so, basically, I need to tell you, it's been a year since I've been wearing that shirt. I know I said, hey, Jude, don't make it bad, take a sad song and make it better. But you don't understand how good the sun feels when you only get to see it once a year. It's,
all right.
I feel right, Miri. Eli took me out of here. I saw fresh air. I smelled fresh air. I heard birds. and not just the birds that, are close to me because I'm penguin. Actual birds. Eli took me through his long flowing hair, and he said to me, Crabsworth, this is what it's all about. And I cried. I'm not going to lie to you. I cried, Mary. I cried. And to know that I'm not going to get to experience that level of humanity for another year, it's going to hurt, but it feels so good right now.
Oh, well, let's finish up on Justin Trudeau. So this was his major quote when he was campaigning, and I didn't realize how topical it was until I went through all of Stephen Harper's stuff, and in particular, the stuff that Stephen Harper said on record. I want my Canada back, and that was like a big feeling going on. I remember it.
Yeah.
By the way, we are not going to apologize. We all agree COVID Trudeau is best Trudeau. I don't care your political affiliation. This was the crowning achievement of all of his looks that he served.
By a country mile. Country mile.
So, yeah, no apologies. You're going to see COVID Trudeau quite a bit, and we don't care. He is actually the first child of a previous holder of the post to hold the post. Oddly, Ben Mulroney was a guest at Trudeau's wedding. So, it's kind of nice to see that Ben Mulroney isn't a dick like his dad.
Well, we don't know that. He may just not be a dick to the Trudeau family.
Yeah. In some of my reading, it kind of seems like the kids of prime ministers who have grown up and become adults, they kind of have, it's like they were in a shared club or something growing up a bit. And so, like, they have that kind of shared knowledge type thing. Does that make sense? Like that?
No, it does. It totally does.
Yeah.
The Prime Minister's Boys Club.
Yeah, so there's...
And Kim Campbell.
Since 2007, there was speculation about, I gotta say JT, because it's his father's Trudeau, he's Trudeau, it gets confusing, so I'll say JT. There was a speculation about him leading the Liberal Party and becoming Prime Minister. Now, what's interesting is a big part of that, he was he was a teacher by trade, and he also did some activism work, like especially after his brother died. He sat on a board for, we'll get into it, but for avalanche safety and stuff like that. Oddly enough, it is really easy to find out how much money each member of the Trudeau family makes from Pierre Elliott Trudeau's royalties. Just so you know, it's in, I can't remember if it's per person or if it's shared. I think it's per person. It averages about $10,000 a year. So it's not like they're making millions off of that. And they do have, there is like a trust fund as well. That's not a trust fund, an investment fund that's handled as well. And I didn't dig into it, but it's quite transparent. You can see where the money's coming from. And I mean transparent by comparison to other party leaders in Canada, for example. So it's interesting fact.
Yeah.
I gotta say this, we are gonna have an award for the shadiest prime minister later on.
Yep.
Unfortunately, JT, we went back and forth on this. JT is not in the running because he had Trump. Trump was a very easy target, but he does have the parade of memes. So that's the consolation prize, because like this was the first meme prime minister. Like people knew what memes were, people knew what they were doing. Everybody got in the vein, and you're all gonna love the parade of memes. Some context, he did grow up in politics. Like he spent part of his life at Sussex Drive. His father was very much active and into everything. He was the second child in Canadian history to be born to a prime minister in office. His younger brothers are third and fourth. So that was Alexander and Michael. He also has 3 half siblings. So those were the kids I didn't mention for Pierre Elliott Trudeau. He does have 3 half siblings. So Kyle and Alicia, who are from his mother's remarriage to Fred Kemper, and then Sarah, who's from his father's relationship with Deborah Coney. Yeah, so his parents' divorce, separation, and custody custody workouts, all of that stuff, it was incredibly public. Like a lot of he's been in the public eye. He's had his family in the public eye for a very long time. Like he's very aware of it. Of his mother and father's marriage in 2009, he said, they loved each other incredibly, passionately, completely, but there was 30 years between them, and my mom never was an equal partner in what encompassed my father's life, his duty, his country, which I thought was a very, gentle way of putting it. Yeah. He always, his dad was super into the outdoors and camping, and apparently he is on the record saying he enjoyed it the most because that was where our father got to just be our father, a dad in the woods. So I would imagine, like we spoke about Pierre Elliott Trudeau, very much larger than life. So it must have been interesting to kind of get to see that dichotomy. In the summers, he and his brothers would go to Camp Amec, which is on Canoe Lake in Algonquin Park. And then he would later work his first paid job as camp counselor there. I kind of feel that's quite average. That's quite normal for a lot of people. They went to camp and then, become a camp counselor there.
Yep. A lot of people will be like that.
There is a kind of point that I want to talk about. So, Justin Trudeau is not just the child of a prime minister. He is a child of a larger-than-life prime minister. A larger-than-life prime minister who had international, he was associated with celebrities. Trudeau mania was a thing. Pierre Elliott Trudeau was this larger-than-life character.
Yes, he was.
So, Edward Greenspan, editor-in-chief of the Globe and Mail, did note that Trudeau would be viewed as few other rookie PMs are, as a potential future prime minister, and scrutinized through that lens. So, even before it was like, oh, he can handle himself as a member of parliament. Let's give him more responsibilities. Let's see, could he handle leadership? Even before that, from the beginning, the moment he formally entered politics, he was looked at through that lens. And I've got to be honest, he was never going to live up to that kind of hype.
No.
It's an impossible thing to live up to. Really hard to live up to.
Well, just imagine, his dad, love him or hate him, his dad was larger than life. You knew who Pierre Trudeau was.
Yeah.
At any given time, you're going to take everything that Pierre did, and you look at it through the lens of okay, now I have to do it. Everything that he does is going to be compared to what Pierre did.
Yeah, and to be honest, it's something that no prime minister has really had to deal with.
No.
Because we're also talking about the fact that we're so far away from his father, we can actually look back and understand the pros, cons, the ramifications. We even touched on, is this a true con or not? Is this a true pro or not? And that balancing act that you have to do when you're making those decisions. So you don't have the questions of how is this going to turn out? We've seen how it turns out. We have that benefit of history. Like I said, since 2007, there was speculation about him leading the Liberal Party and becoming prime minister. In 2011, when that topic came up again, he said, "I don't feel I should be closing off any options because the history packaged into my name, a lot of people are turning to me in a way that, to be blunt, concerns me." So he's been aware of that from the beginning. I think everybody's been aware of that from the beginning.
Absolutely.
He did, he's self-described as a lapsed Catholic, which is not unusual given his upbringing. But he did regain his faith following the death of his brother, which again, that's not anything to be, that's a usual thing to have happen. Unlike Harper, he hasn't said, very, very religious, not even undertones or overtones, just blatantly religious statements on record as a political figure. Not ones that I could find that were so readily available. So I got some quotes. And it's difficult. It's difficult. You can tell he knows how to talk, but he also isn't going as far as he could go. That's why the memes were great for him, because he doesn't go as shady as his dad.
No, but very few people can go as shady as his dad was.
Yeah. So he's always been very upfront about his background. He says, "I was a snowboard instructor. I was a bouncer in a nightclub. I was a whitewater river guide for many years. I worked as a teacher. I make no apologies for my varied set of life experiences." It was difficult showing up in grade 1 as Pierre Elliott Trudeau's son. It was difficult to become a high school teacher as Pierre Elliott Trudeau's son. That's something I've lived with all my life. What people don't necessarily remember is that my father was an incredibly present dad as a prime minister.
Yeah.
My father's values and vision of this country obviously form everything I have as values and ideals. But this is not the ghost of my father running for leadership of the Liberal Party. This is me. He said some very nice words about Jack Layton, and there is a quote that keeps floating around. "I am, as many people are, inspired by Jack Layton's legacy and the way that he approached politics," which I think is a really nice summation for Jack
absolutely.
Layton.
Absolutely it is.
Oh, yeah.
You can believe whatever you wish to do. That is how you handle your political opponent with class.
Yes. Not saying that they didn't deserve the accolades that they got. Like, you seriously couldn't say one nice thing?
Seriously, Dave.
My idea of freedom is that we should protect the rights of people to believe what their conscience dictates, but fight equally hard to protect people from having the beliefs of others imposed upon them. So we're seeing that balancing act. I'm constantly amazed when I talk with people in the international stage, and I refer to immigrants or refugees as new Canadians. We don't even think about it. That's what you are. You're new Canadians. Fear is Fear is a dangerous thing. Once it is sanctioned by the state, there is no telling where it may lead. It is always a short path to walk from being suspicious of our fellow citizens to taking actions to restrict their liberty. And then we've said that Trudeau's strength has been he's charismatic. He's also likable on the international stage with international political leaders, which is it's in the job description. Like, you can't get around those two things nowadays. But he also had You can't run a government from one single person. What instead matters is that leadership be about gathering around extraordinary individuals and getting the best out of them. And I will say, we're not going into detail about it, but when I was reading about him and his involvement in other places before coming into politics, and even into politics, that's what he has done consistently, is to get the advice of other people who know better and to make informed decisions based upon that. We could probably spend hours analyzing where he's getting the advice from. Is it good advice? Blah blah blah. But we're not going to do that. Just he is genuinely trying to walk what he's saying. Genuinely trying. I did like this quote. So there will always be people who say we should just tear things down. They simply don't work. We should just fold inward. The three of us, Angela Merkel, Emmanuel Macron, and I, are trying to show that we can work with existing systems and that we need to make sure that they work for all citizens and that they create the freedoms and opportunities without having to be more fearful, which the right is always pushing that anger, which the left seems to push. Ugh. So that's the thing, is we're talking about somebody who is trying to find a balance and to be less polarizing. But as I said, a lot of his words are carefully chosen. They're said in a very good way. Now, there was one major faux pas, and we get to that in the parade of memes, because it inspired a song. And
it's great.
It's a beautiful song. It's so beautiful. But yeah, again, there's a lot of awareness. Like, this is his quote on Harper. The big frustration for me is that people are growing so cynical about politics. You see them basically shrug and say, oh yeah, who cares that Harper is shutting down debate? Who cares that he's building prisons and everything? All the politicians are the same, so why should we be outraged about one than the other? And my point is, Canadians need to wake up. This is not the Canada they'd recognize if they look closely. And after going through that analysis of Harper, I have to say I do agree with that. I actually wasn't expecting to come out agreeing with JT as much as I ended up agreeing with, which is very weird.
But it's interesting when you look at it, like, a lot of what he says, he's absolutely right. And those are pretty words he packages it with.
Yeah, He's stating the truth, like Paul Martin was doing, but he's got eloquence.
He's doing it. Yes, he's doing it in a much better way. However, I question whether or not he truly believes that, because the best way that he could have done that.
We're going back to your point, aren't we? We're going back to it.
Yep, we're going back to it. The best way he could have done that was voter reform. And he chose not to, not just on one, but two majority governments where he could have.
I have another thing to say about that. Because
go ahead.
I choose the chaos route.
Okay.
Not voter reform, but we amalgamate the left. Chaos! Pure chaos!
Who would lead this new amalgamated left?
Reggie! Clearly, we need somebody with no ties to any of the left parties. This is where Reggie fits in.
Yeah, because that. Yeah, because that'll be palatable for the left.
Damn straight.
Hey, we don't like any of you. Here's our candidate. It's time for the fashion show that's gonna make you scream.
Another one, you can't be Canadian without being aware of at least one other country, the United States, because it's so important to us. I think we sometimes like to think that, Americans will pay attention to us from time to time too. So yeah, there's a lot of quotes. There's a lot of, him recognizing problems. There's he said some great things. For example, that Canada has some very dark histories, from internments to turning away the St. Louis and the Komagata Maru, but none is darker than our abject failure to respect rights, the spirit and intent of the original treaties with First Nations, Métis Nation, and Inuit people. We have to transform that relationship. So like there's a lot of great like words here, but we're also not seeing the same kind of biting shade his father had. But we'll get to the shade. Don't worry. So his CV, and this is the last time everybody will see the sexy moose. I know Crabsworth is particularly upset about that.
Yeah.
So interesting thing, he did in fact go to public school growing up at his mother's insistence, and I mention it because this is a funny visual. Remember, he and his brothers were the sons of the Prime Minister, right? An RCMP vehicle would follow the public school bus they would take to school every day and follow them back home, which I always thought, like, it's one of those, like, you get it, but it's also surreal. Later, he did go to a few French language private schools. He did go to McGill University with a Bachelor of Arts degree in literature, which I think you can see with a lot of his phrasing and eloquence. He became acquainted with his future principal secretary. Are you ready for his name?
Yes.
Gerald Butts. And Butts invited Trudeau to join the McGill debating union. So early, debate and stuff like that. He did get a Bachelor of Education degree from the University of British Columbia. Not uncommon, by the way. A lot of secondary school teachers in Canada tend to have 2 degrees. It's almost a requirement for the job or something, but they tend to have the 2 degrees. He actually supported party leader John Turner at in the federal election. He taught at secondary school. He taught the secondary school level in Vancouver as French and math teacher. This was where the brownface gate happened. The brownface scandal happened. Was at that school. 2000, he defended Canadian federalism at a student event at College Jean de Brebeuf, which he attended. He also attended the Kokanee Summit in Creston, British Columbia, to raise funds in honor of his brother Michael Trudeau and other avalanche victims. So after those events, he did an unsigned editorial in Creston Valley Advance, which was a local... After the event above, an unsigned editorial at the Creston Valley Advance, which was a local newspaper, accused Trudeau of having groped an unnamed female reporter at a music festival. However, there's never been any proof about if it actually happened or not. And in fact, there's several people who have said it was fake. So I mention it, you can draw your own conclusions from it, but it was an unsigned editorial with an unnamed female reporter. Who knows what happened? Also, it could have very well been consensual groping, because it's a music festival, and this is, young Trudeau in his young Trudeau days, and we've got pictures. We've got pictures, so don't worry.
Yeah, we're not talking about, like, COVID Trudeau. This is like young virile Trudeau.
Yeah.
Even though we both think COVID Trudeau is way, way hotter, as you will see.
Yes. So like I said, no one actually stepped forward, so it's very hard to corroborate if this was true or not. I mention it, we don't know. We genuinely don't know. Again, at 28 in 2000, he emerged as a prominent figure. This is the part you'll be interested in. So up till this point, when did Justin Trudeau suddenly emerge as a potential candidate for the Liberal Party? Why get into politics? So at 28, he emerged as a prominent figure after delivering the eulogy at his father's state funeral. CBC actually received tons of calls to rebroadcast the speech after its initial transmission. Quebec politician Claude Ryan actually ended up describing it as perhaps the first manifestation of a dynasty. In a book issued by the CBC in 2003, it actually included that speech in its list of significant Canadian events from the past 50 years. So that speech suddenly, and I think it says a lot for the fact that it's 2000. We know Chrétien is there. There's a lot of divide. We know Chrétien is on the way out. We see the writing on the wall about needing charismatic leadership, and that was sort of a moment when everybody was speculating. That same year, he and his family started the Kokanee Glacier Alpine campaign for winter sports safety. That was 2 years after his brother Michael died in an avalanche during a ski trip. So that was heavy because 98, Michael died. 2000, Pierre Elliott Trudeau died. 2002, he criticized the government of British Alberta's decision to stop its funding for a public avalanche warning system. It's an apt criticism.
Yeah.
Like that is an apt criticism. He started a master's degree in environmental geography at McGill, but he withdrew from the program to seek public office. I mentioned about the what the he and his brothers have shares. So there's a fairly so when we look at the shares in the numerous companies, they have a stake in an inherited estate, which was a home designed by the Canadian architect Arthur Erickson. The dividends, the royalties, all of that, it's about $30,000 per year total for everybody. So it's approximately that, because up down with the market.
Yep.
But again, it's not. I've heard some people speculate, oh, they're getting millions. They're not from that. 2002 to 2006, he was the chair for the youth charity Katimavik. 2002 to 2003, he was a panelist on CBC Radio's Canada Reads series. Where he championed The Colony of Unrequited Dreams by Wayne Johnson. 2003, with Olympian Charmaine Crooks, he co-hosted a tribute to the outgoing Prime Minister Jean Chrétien at the party's 2003 leadership convention. So we're starting to see that coming in, but taking a media route. Trudeau and his brother Alexander inaugurated the Trudeau Centre for Peace and Conflict Studies at the University of Toronto, obviously named for his father, in April 2004. That the center later became part of the Munk School of Global Affairs. In 2005, Trudeau fought against a proposed $100 million zinc mine that he said would poison the Nahanni River, which is a United Nations World Heritage Site located in the Northwest Territories. In 2006, he hosted the presentation ceremony for the Giller Prize for Literature. So what you're seeing is this is somebody who is very good at public speaking.
Yes.
That's where we're seeing. We said what his strength was, and you're seeing that right now. He did criticize Quebec nationalism, describing political nationalism generally as an old idea from the 19th century based on smallness of thought and not relevant to modern Quebec. Again, in 2006, he was the master of ceremonies at a Toronto rally organized by Romeo Dallaire that called for Canadian participation in resolving the Darfur crisis. Later that year, he also supported for leadership candidate Gerard Kennedy shortly before the 2006 convention. When Kennedy dropped off after the second ballot, Trudeau joined him in supporting the ultimate winner, your favorite, Stéphane Dion.
Yeah.
He's the director of the not-for-profit Canadian Avalanche Association, or he was chair of the Liberal Party's task force on youth renewal. Gets into the House of Commons as an MP. His first legislative act was a motion that called for the creation of a national voluntary service policy for young people. He was also the Liberal Party's official opposition critic for youth and multiculturalism in 2009. And he criticized the government's legislation targeting human smuggling, which he argued would penalize the victims of smuggling. Trudeau sparked controversy when it was revealed he earned $1.3 million in public speaking fees from charities and school boards across Canada, $277,000 of which Trudeau received after becoming an MP. You gotta earn a living, and B, what do you think all the other politicians do?
Yeah.
They also get paid for speaking engagements, the exact same thing. So if you don't like him doing it, then just remember you have to not like all of them doing it. Just letting you all know.
And legitimately, all of them will do it.
Yeah, all of them do it. They absolutely do. He was the critic for citizenship and immigration in 2010. He encouraged an increase of Canada's relief efforts following the 2010 Haiti earthquake, and sought more accessible immigration procedures for Haitians moving to Canada in the time of crisis. 2011, he was appointed as critic for secondary education and sport. 2012 was the charity boxing match on behalf of cancer research fundraising event Fight for the Cure. He had difficulty finding a conservative opponent until Conservative Senator Patrick Brousseau agreed. When asked on behalf of their mutual hairdresser, Stefania Capophilia. So you really have to thank Stefania for that happening. I gotta thank her.
Yeah.
And the fight happened March 31st, 2012 in Ottawa at the Hampton Inn, and it was broadcast live with commentary by Ezra Levant, Brian Lilly. Trudeau ended up winning in the third round, which was considered an upset. 2013, leader of the Liberal Party. So that brings us to now. The core people on his campaign team were considered longtime friends, which were all in their 30s and 40s. And at this point in time in politics, this was considered young. It's still considered young even now.
Yeah.
Take that with how you will. During the leadership campaign, he did pledge to park all of his assets, exclusive real estate holdings, into a blind trust, which is actually incredibly atypical for most MPs, including leaders. I personally think a blind trust should be the standard, because then they can't go meddling with contracts and conflict of interests, which we've seen.
Just a little. Like.
He did fulfill that pledge. The Ottawa Citizen reported on that in July of 2013, when the blind trust was set up by BMO Private Banking. So it was in fact done. Leader of the opposition, 2015, he became prime minister. Was the prime minister during COVID. So to keep things fair, so remember how Harper had promises kept and then partial promises as well. I did promises kept, partial promises, and then I'm also including promises in progress because he's still in.
Yeah, he's not
still
done.
Doing it. He's not done. So that's at a 77%, which is pretty good. The remaining is broken or not yet rated. So there's still some waiting to be done, but I would say 77% was actually much higher than I thought, because if you listen to a lot of media around Justin Trudeau, you would think that would be significantly lower. So yeah, keeping things fair there. So yeah, he's I ended up coming out of this liking him more than I thought, which I think says a lot for what the predominant media voice is, because I want to say, I don't like ads. I don't pay attention to ads. I really don't like them. So the fact that I can tell what like the major voice is in media says a lot, that it gets drilled over to me. So when I actually go in and do the research, I'm kind of like, oh, this, I was expecting like, you know, something so much worse. Just like how I didn't realize that Harper was so blatantly evangelically religious. Cret testament to what you said. What you see is what you get. I had laughs. Like,
how could you not?
Like, there were some great laughs there. So yeah, that's what I wanna say about it. So just he's Justin Trudeau, he's absolutely human. He absolutely has flaws. I don't want to make it seem like we're not going to acknowledge that. We absolutely did. I just want to say he's not the fucking devil incarnate come to destroy the country. Not at all.
He's not?
No.
There go.
I'm sorry to disappoint you. I'm sorry.
There goes my 37 pages of notes. I'm not going to get those back.
Now, on that note, we have made it to the end of the Prime Ministers. We've got
first of all, are you telling me
long slog. It was a long slog to get here. 6 fucking hours. And countless hours of research. And then hours on the preamble stuff so that people understood Canadian politics. It was a long, long haul to get here. I don't know how many episodes this is going to be.
Can I just say flat out, congratulations to you for making it through this. No. You don't understand. I put in maybe 20 hours of research, most of it going back over the notes I already had on various PMs. Mary? I don't even want to think. About how much research and effort.
I made easy to read pro cons list for everybody. Like, I'm helping you here. By the way, if anybody has made it to the end of this and they do not know who to vote for in the next election, fuck you all. I made you pro cons list about every previous leader, including their political affiliation. How fucking dare you? Do you want to make me cry? Do you want to make me bleed my own blood? That's how you do it, by not voting. I made this so easy for you all.
I'm voting for Bugs Bunny.
That's fine. Like I said, I respect a protest vote.
Unless of course my father comes back to me, because he did offer me a deal. He and I would vote for the same candidate. We both agreed on the viability of this candidate, because we don't know Reggie's platform yet. But if no candidate impresses my father, he is more than willing to vote for Stewie Griffin. And considering he does not like Family Guy, that's huge. So I have to support him. If he does not like any candidate, Stewie Griffin. There's the vote.
There you go. Yeah, always have your protest vote in your back pocket. They get counted. We want that quantifiable data, guys. We need that quantifiable data. Now, there is a very special person I want to thank. And that's Jerry in Kazakhstan.
We love you, Jerry.
Who we know has kept up with this. Hasn't skipped listening. Has kept up with us. So we thank you, Jerry in Kazakhstan, very much. Thank you. Our fan from day one.
We would not be where we are without the love and support of Jerry.
Yep. So thank you, Jerry. On that note, guess what? The next
It's
episode.
time.
Now, if you thought I spent a lot of time on all of this, and believe me, I spent a lot of time on all of this, like so much ungodly amount of time on research, and then such an ungodly time on making it look as horrible as possible, just for you, by the way. Just for you, Crabsworth. Just for you.
Thank you. Thank you.
If you thought I spent a long time on that, wait till you see the parade of memes, because I had an epiphany with something that PowerPoint does for its transitions, and I will tell you about that in the next episode. So, is there anything you have left to tell the people?
No, I got nothing. Like, guys, go out there and vote for Miri's sake. I can't tell you how long she's been planning for this, and that if we were going to do Reggie for PM, anything beyond a simple planning stage, what had to go into it? It's an insane amount of work.
All right, on that respect, we will see you all at the parade of memes.
Bye-bye, everybody!
Hey, this is Trapdoor Crabsworth for deathpixie. If you liked our content, please like this video and subscribe. And if you want to see more, just check out our links in the description. Do it or Miri will kill you.